There comes a point in every journey where the weight feels unbearable, where you've carried so much for so long that your soul begins to ache in silence. You smile in public, you push through the day, you do what you have to do, but inside you're tired. And not just tired in your body, tired in your spirit, tired in your heart, tired of pretending you're fine when you're not, tired of always being the strong one, tired of fighting battles no one else can see. And here's the truth: God sees you. He sees what no one else sees. The tears you've cried in the dark, the prayers you whispered when your voice trembled, the moments when you didn't know how you'd get through, but you did anyway. Not because it was easy, not because you had all the answers, but because you chose to keep going. One more step, one more breath, one more act of faith, even when your faith felt weak. You've carried burdens that weren't yours alone. You've stood in the gap for others. You've poured yourself out again and again, hoping that someone, anyone, would see. And maybe they didn't. Maybe they still don't, but God did. God does. And He never looked away. He knows you're tired. He knows the weight on your shoulders. He knows how much you've been holding together. He knows you've been showing up even when you felt like falling apart. He knows the pressure, the fear, the doubts you dare not voice. And He wants you to know it's okay to not have it all together. It's okay to feel weary. It's okay to sit down for a moment and let the tears fall. Because you were never meant to carry this alone. You were never meant to be the one who holds everyone else up while silently falling apart inside. You were never asked to be perfect. You were never asked to be unbreakable. You were asked to trust, to lean, to let go of control and rest in the one who holds you. But so often, we try to be everything for everyone. We wear strength like a mask, hoping no one sees the cracks underneath. We speak faith while silently doubting in our hearts. We keep smiling, keep performing, keep pushing, hoping that maybe, just maybe, one day the pressure will ease. But it doesn't. And that's when we start to break, not loudly, not dramatically, but slowly, quietly, inwardly. And we wonder, does anyone see? Does anyone know how hard this has been? God knows. He's been with you every step of the way, in every sleepless night, in every anxious thought, in every moment you thought about giving up but didn't. He was there. When you had nothing left to give, He was still giving. When you had no words to pray, He was still listening. When you were too weak to stand, He was holding you, and He still is. You don't have to carry this weight alone. You don't have to keep pretending. You don't have to be the strong one all the time. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to cry. You are allowed to be human because your God is not looking for perfect performances. He's looking for surrendered hearts. Hearts that say, I can't do this by myself anymore. Hearts that are honest. Hearts that are real. And if that's you, if you're weary, if you're burdened, if you're quietly breaking inside, then hear this. You're not alone. You're not invisible. You're not forgotten. You are seen. You are known. You are loved. And not just loved in theory, not loved from a distance, but loved personally, intimately, deeply. Loved by a God who doesn't just observe your pain, He enters into it. A God who doesn't just stand above your struggle, He walks through it with you. He doesn't wait for you to fix yourself before He comes near. He draws close right now, in the middle of the mess, in the middle of the exhaustion, in the middle of your unanswered questions. because you are his child, and the Father does not abandon his child. He doesn't leave you to fight alone. He doesn't hand you a burden and disappear. He walks beside you. He strengthens you. He lifts what you can't carry anymore. And when your strength runs out, his begins. When your hands let go, his hands take over. When your vision grows dim, he sees clearly. That's why scripture says, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Not more tasks, not more pressure. Rest. Rest for your soul. Rest for your mind. Rest from the expectations that were never yours to carry. He knows that you've been trying so hard to hold it together. He knows that people depend on you. He knows that you feel guilty for even admitting how tired you are. But he's not disappointed in you. He's not frustrated with your fatigue. He's not surprised by your weariness. He understands, because even Jesus, God in human form, grew tired. He knows what it's like to carry more than anyone understands. He knows what it's like to serve and give and be surrounded by people who still don't truly see you. He knows what it's like to weep, to sweat, to ache. And he invites you now, not to perform, not to explain, not to impress, but to rest, to lay it down, to come close, to be honest, to be still. Because sometimes the holiest thing you can do is stop. Not stop believing, not stop hoping, but stop pretending, stop striving, stop carrying what was never yours. Let the tears fall, let the mask slip, let your heart speak, not with eloquence, not with strength, but with truth. God, I'm tired. God, I'm overwhelmed. God, I don't know what to do. He already knows. And he's not moved away. He's moving closer. He's not waiting for a perfect prayer. He's responding to your surrender, not because you've earned it, not because you've performed well, but because that's who he is. A God who gives strength to the weary, a God who renews the broken, a God who doesn't just give you rest, but becomes your rest. So let him. Let him carry what you've been holding. Let him breathe peace into the chaos. Let him hold your heart just as it is, not fixed, not polished, not covered in pretense, just as it is, worn, weary, but still beating, still reaching, still believing, even if only by a thread. That's enough. Because faith isn't always loud. Sometimes faith is quiet. Sometimes it's not a shout, it's a whisper. A trembling breath that says, "I'm still here." A heart that chooses to keep believing even when the answers haven't come. A soul that refuses to let go, even when every part of you wants to walk away. And God honors that kind of faith. He sees that kind of endurance. He meets you right there. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't need to have a 5-year plan. You don't need to explain how you're going to make it. All you need to do is stay close. Stay under the shelter of his wings. Let your life be less about managing everything and more about abiding in him. Because when you abide in him, you are held, you are covered, you are safe. Not from pain, not from struggle, but from collapse, from despair, from the kind of hopelessness that whispers, "You'll never get through this." That voice is a lie, because you will get through this. Not because you're strong enough, but because he is. You're still here. That alone is proof of grace. Think about all the moments that can have broken you, but didn't. All the things that tried to destroy you but failed. All the nights when it felt like the darkness would never lift and yet the sun still rose. It wasn't your strength that kept you, it was God's hand. And that same hand is holding you now. So take a breath. Not because your situation is fixed, but because you're not facing it alone. Take a breath, because heaven hasn't forgotten you. Take a breath, because even when the story doesn't make sense, the author is still writing, and his stories never end in defeat. The enemy wants you to think you're finished. He wants you to believe this tired season will be your undoing. He wants to convince you that no one sees, no one cares, and nothing will change. But the enemy is a liar, because God sees, God cares, God is moving. Maybe not in ways you can trace yet, maybe not in the areas you expected, but his hands are working behind the scenes. His spirit is moving beneath the surface. His timing is aligning pieces you didn't even know were missing. And while you wait, while you press on, while you trust, he is strengthening you. Not just to survive this season, but to step into the next one with power, with clarity, with healing, with purpose. Because your struggle is not the end of your story. It's a chapter, a necessary, painful, refining chapter. But it is not forever. There is a turning point ahead. There is relief coming. There is restoration on the horizon, and when it comes, it will not be small. It will not be random. It will not be fragile. It will be purposeful, measured, full of the kind of redemption only God can orchestrate. And you'll look back on the tears, on the fatigue, on the nights when you almost gave up, and you'll say, even there, he was with me. Even then, he didn't let go. And when that realization sinks in, when you finally see that he was with you even in the moments you felt most alone, something shifts. The pain may not disappear, but the fear begins to lose its grip. The pressure begins to ease. You stop carrying everything on your own shoulders. You stop running from rest. You stop apologizing for your weariness, because now you know. God does not expect you to be invincible. He expects you to be honest. He expects you to bring your weakness to him, not hide it from him. He expects you to lean in, not pull away. He doesn't need your performance. He wants your heart. That's the beauty of the gospel. Not that we are strong enough, but that he is. Not that we can climb out of our struggles on our own, but that he meets us in the pit and lifts us with mercy. And when you've been lifted like that, you carry a different kind of strength, not the kind that boasts, but the kind that understands. Not the kind that needs applause, but the kind that offers compassion. You stop judging others for their struggle because you remember your own. You stop trying to fix everyone's pain with quick words because you remember how long it took to walk through yours. You become a safe place because you found safety in him. You become a source of quiet hope, not because everything is perfect in your life, but because you've met the God who holds you even when it's not. And that's what the world needs. Not more noise, but more presence. Not more answers, but more grace. Not more people who act like they've never struggled, but people who can say, I've been there. I know what tired feels like. And I know the God who restores. You don't need a platform to do that. You don't need a microphone or a stage. You just need a heart that's been humbled, a life that's been healed, a testimony that's still unfolding. Because your healing doesn't have to be finished for God to use it. Your story doesn't have to be wrapped up with a bow to carry power. Sometimes it's in the middle of the process, right in the mess, that your words carry the most weight, that your presence brings the most peace, because it's real, it's honest, it's unpolished, and that's what makes it holy. You're not pretending anymore. You're not pushing to be perfect. You're just walking step by step with the God who knows you, sees you, loves you, and has never left you. And every step forward, no matter how small, is a declaration of victory. Every breath you take in faith is a war cry against the darkness. Every time you get back up, even if your knees are shaken, heaven celebrates. Because God doesn't just see your struggle, He honors it. He stores every tear. He strengthens every surrender. He breathes hope into every weary soul who dares to keep going. And you, right now, you are one of them. Because even now, in the very place where you feel empty, heaven is leaning in. Even now in the silence, God is speaking. Not always in ways you expect, not always in the language of immediate answers, but in the gentle assurance that you are not forgotten, in the quiet peace that shows up in the middle of chaos, in the small moments of breath, of beauty, of grace that keep you going when everything in you wants to give up. You see, God doesn't need a loud room to move. He doesn't need noise to perform a miracle. He often moves best in the stillness, in the place where no one else is looking, in the prayers no one else hears, in the courage it takes just to rise and face another day. That's where He's doing His work, because you're not just surviving this season, you're being transformed in it. Your heart is stretching, your spirit is deepening, your roots are going down further than you ever thought possible. And though the process is painful, it is also purposeful, because God doesn't waste pain. He doesn't dismiss exhaustion. He doesn't ignore the ache you can't even articulate. He works with it. He uses it. He meets you in the middle of it. And slowly, gently, faithfully, He's building something in you that could not be formed in the ease. He's shaping endurance. He's forming humility. He's instilling trust. He's proving that your foundation is not built on outcomes, but on Him. Because the truth is, there will be more battles. There will be more seasons where things don't make sense. But the next time tired comes knocking, the next time anxiety starts to rise, the next time you feel like you're falling behind, you'll remember. You'll remember who held you last time. You'll remember what God whispered in the silence. You'll remember how He made a way before, and He'll do it again. And that memory will become your strength, not because the pain was pleasant, but because the presence of God in it was undeniable. So no, this isn't the end of your story. This isn't the chapter where you quit. This isn't the season where God forgets you. This is the place where He's anchoring you, grounding you, rooting you in truth so deep you'll carry it for the rest of your life. And one day, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but one day you'll look back and say, that was the season that changed me. That was the valley that strengthened me. That was where I learned to stop carrying it alone. That's where I stopped pretending. That's where I met God in a way I never had before. And when you meet God like that, in the dark, in the quiet, in the breaking, you never forget it. Because that kind of encounter marks you. It stays with you. It redefines what strength really means. You no longer confuse strength with never crying. You no longer think faith means never feeling overwhelmed. You no longer try to be everything for everyone, because you've learned that being held is more powerful than pretending to have it all together. You've learned that rest is not laziness. It's obedience. That slowing down doesn't mean you're giving up. It means you're finally trusting God to carry what you can't. You've learned that asking for help doesn't make you weak, it makes you honest. And honesty is the soil where healing takes root. You don't heal by ignoring your exhaustion. You heal by bringing it to the one who says, "Come to me." And when you come, just as you are, weary and worn, you don't find shame. You find rest. Not just rest for your body, but for your soul. A soul that has been under pressure for far too long. A heart that has tried so hard to be enough. A mind that has carried fear, doubt, and responsibility like a 1,000-pound weight. That's what he wants to lift. That's what he wants to touch. That's what he's inviting you to release. You don't have to over-explain. You don't have to rehearse the right words. You just need to exhale, let go, fall into grace. Let his love wrap around the parts of you that feel forgotten. Let his truth silence the lies that have shouted for too long. Let his spirit breathe again into places you thought were too far gone, because they're not. You're not. You're not too far gone. You're not too broken. You're not too tired to begin again. You're not too lost to be found, even if you feel like all you've done lately is survive. God still calls you his. Even if your prayers have felt hollow, he still hears. Even if your faith feels small, he says it's enough. Even if you've fallen more times than you can count, he's still reaching. Because his grace doesn't run out when your strength does. His mercy doesn't disappear when your energy fades. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And that means even now, even in this chapter, you are still in his hands, still in his care, still covered by his promises, still written into his purpose. And you don't need to climb your way back. You don't need to earn his nearness. You are already seen, already known, already loved. Because love like that changes you. It softens the hard places. It heals the wounds no one else can see. It brings color back to the areas of your life that have felt gray for far too long. Not all at once, not in a flash, but slowly, gently, daily. As you let go of the need to prove yourself, as you loosen your grip on the pressure to keep going without rest, as you begin to believe that being held is better than being perfect. And in that belief, something powerful happens. You begin to walk lighter. Not because the circumstances have changed, but because you have. You're no longer trying to outrun the weight. You're learning to release it. You're no longer pretending to be invincible. You're discovering the beauty of being human. You're no longer hiding your fatigue. You're learning to bring it to the one who restores. And the more you bring to him, the more you realize he was never asking for your perfection. He was always asking for your presence, not polished, not put together, just present, just willing, just honest. And you begin to see he never stopped showing up, even when you pulled away, even when your prayers were quiet, even when your faith wavered, he stayed. Because that's what love does. It doesn't walk away when things get hard. It doesn't run when you get tired. It stays. And so you learn to stay too, to stay rooted in him, even when life shakes you, to stay grounded in his truth when lies try to creep in, to stay faithful even when results are slow, to stay close even when you don't feel strong. Because closeness doesn't come from performance. It comes from permission. The permission to show up as you are. The permission to rest when you're weary. The permission to receive grace instead of guilt. And when you live from that place, when your soul finally exhales, you start to realize that strength isn't something you strive for anymore. It's something you receive daily, quietly, faithfully, from the one who never asked you to carry it alone. And once you learn to receive that kind of strength, your entire posture shifts. You no longer brace for every day like it's a battle to be won. You begin to move through life with a steadiness that doesn't come from your own willpower, but from being anchored in His presence. The world may still spin fast, the demands may still come, but something in you has changed. You're no longer rushing. You're no longer running on fumes. You've found something better than control. You've found rest, not escape, not avoidance, but real soul-level rest. The kind of rest that allows you to breathe in the middle of busyness. The kind that lets you say no without guilt. The kind that lets you sit in silence and know that God is still working even when you're not. And that rest, it becomes your strength. Not because you figured it all out, not because the path suddenly became easy, but because you finally stopped believing the lie that everything depends on you. You finally released the pressure to keep performing. You finally begun to trust that when God said, "My grace is sufficient," He meant it. He didn't say it was sufficient only on your best days, only when your energy is high, only when your faith is flawless. He said, it's sufficient, period. Sufficient for the days when you're exhausted, sufficient for the moments when your hands are trembling, sufficient for the nights when your mind won't stop spinning. That's the kind of grace you're living in now. The kind that meets you where you are. The kind that sustains, not just inspires. The kind that whispers, you don't have to do more to be more. You're already enough. You're already covered. You're already held. And from that truth, you begin to walk differently, not with urgency, but with peace. Not with panic, but with purpose. Not to prove something, but to live freely as someone already approved. And that freedom? That's where your real strength begins to show, not in how much you do, but in how rooted you've become, in how deeply you trust, in how gently you move, in how faithfully you show up without needing applause. Because when you've tasted that kind of rest, you stop chasing what can't satisfy. You stop performing for love you already have. You stop carrying burdens that were never yours to carry. And you start living, not for survival, but from overflow. Because living from overflow is not about abundance in your bank account or perfection in your plans. It's about knowing deep in your bones that you're no longer striving to be worthy. You're living as someone who's already been called, chosen, and loved. And that shift, it changes everything. You begin to serve not out of burnout, but from a full heart. You begin to speak not from pressure, but from peace. You begin to show up not to impress, but to be present. And suddenly, the things that used to overwhelm you begin to lose their grip. Not because your life is suddenly easier, but because you are walking in alignment with the one who gives you strength. You are no longer out of sync, no longer trying to do it all in your own timing, your own energy, your own way. You are surrendered. And in surrender, there is power, there is clarity, there is rest. Because when you finally let go of needing to carry everything, God begins to carry you. And what He carries, He sustains. What He builds, He blesses. What He breathes into, He brings to life. So if you're still tired, still unsure, still healing, that's okay. You're not behind. You're not disqualified. You're not forgotten. You are right where he's meeting you, right in the middle, right in the ordinary, right in the slow moments where nothing seems to be changing, but everything inside of you is. You're learning to be still again. You're learning to trust again. You're learning to rest, not just on the outside, but deep within. And this, friend, this is holy ground. Not because it looks impressive, but because God is here. Not because it feels comfortable, but because it's forming you. You're not just recovering, you're being renewed. You're not just pausing, you're being planted. You're not just enduring, you're being established because God doesn't just rescue, He restores. And He's not just helping you get through, He's preparing you to stand stronger, walk freer, and live fuller than you've ever known. This is not the end of your story. This is the turning point, the sacred shift, the place where your tired soul discovers that even weakness is holy when placed in the hands of a faithful God.